What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. We are going to take a look at a clip from the Rees-Mogg LBC show earlier today, where Jacob absolutely destroys a Remoaning caller who claims he is a doctor involved in the outdated Yellowhammer document and drafting the mitigations for a no-deal Brexit, along with another caller who gets laughed at by Nick Farreri and Jacob Rees-Mogg. Let's check it out.
Through to Jacob Rees-Mogg. David, your call. Good morning.
Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning, David.
My name's Dr. David Nichol. I'm a consultant neurologist. I was actually involved in Yellowhammer and drafting the plans of mitigation for a no-deal Brexit in March. My question to you, really, having been involved in writing the plans of mitigation and having whistleblown because I felt they were unsafe, is what level of mortality rate are you willing to accept in the light of a no-deal Brexit?
Well, I don't think that there's any reason to suppose that a no-deal Brexit should lead to a mortality rate. I think this is the worst excess of project fear, and I'm surprised that a doctor in your position would be fear-mongering in this way on public radio.
Can I remind you, I wrote the plans of mitigation.
In mitigation? Well, you didn't write very good plans if you hadn't worked out how to mitigate, had you? It's fortunate they're being written by other people now who are serious about mitigating rather than Remoaners.
Well, except to stop you there, on the Sunday Times yesterday, the Royal Colleges who were involved in contact with Department of Health have not yet been approached to update these documents.
Let me just get involved for a moment.
That's incorrect.
Doctor, and obviously I take you on face value because I have no, you say you're a doctor and I have to take them value. Just to remind my listeners, Operation Yellowhammer is the plan that's implemented in the event of a no-deal Brexit. How many people do you think then? What is the mortality rate that you're working towards and why?
We don't know that. That's not part of Yellowhammer. And I'll remind you that Michael Gove said that this was the worst-case scenario. That's right. Incorrect. Yellowhammer is not the worst-case scenario.
Sorry, pardon me, but as a gentleman, why are people going to die?
Because of all sorts of problems in terms of the issues of access to drugs, the issue about radioisotopes that have already been highlighted. When you get people at the Royal College saying they're very worried...
Again, as a journalist, I have to say, we've heard the Health Secretary, we've even heard the Chairman of the British Pharmaceutical Association saying, if needs be, and this is extraordinary, they will fly drugs in. You seem to be ignoring Jacob Rees-Mogg.
That's right, that's correct. That there are reserve plans to fly drugs in if necessary. That this is a major focus of government policy. I think it's deeply irresponsible, Dr. Nichol, of you to call in and try and spread fear across the country. I think it's typical of Remainer campaigners, and you should be quite ashamed, I'm afraid.
I must allow you a quick response.
Which is why I contacted the GMC.
Right.
So I'm quite happy if you want to refer me to the GMC, we can talk about it there.
All right. Well, I must refer only for time reasons. I'm still going to take you as doctor. I believe you. Dr. Nichol, thank you. We move on to one final question.
Now, of course, I don't know if this guy was actually involved in preparing the Yellow Snow fear-mongering document, but to be honest, it really doesn't matter. Because within his first sentence you can tell he's talking shit. I mean, what sort of doctor comes out with what mortality rate do you find acceptable in the event of a no-deal Brexit, like he has some special evidence or crystal ball to tell the future? Jacob instantly calls this bullshit out for the Project Fear nonsense that it is. In my opinion, it's one of the lowest scaremongering attempts I have ever heard. We can tell the Remoaners have hit rock bottom now, utter desperation and despair has set in. Anything is fair game when it comes to Project Fear. Everyone who dies post October the 31st will be a casualty of a no-deal Brexit. Even if a car hits them, it would still be because Britain left the EU without a deal. Even Jacob is shocked this so-called doctor is spouting this bullshit because obviously even a doctor cannot predict what happens in the future, even for medical issues. No one can. To come on and make these claims are on another level of low. Jacob shits on this guy because obviously just because you wrote the biased plans to mitigate a no-deal Brexit in this Yellow Snow document, that does not make you right. I mean, let's be honest, this guy is a doctor. He's not involved in the supply and purchase of these drugs that he uses. The office staff deal with purchasing and medical delivery companies will deal with the supply of it. He just asks them for what he wants and gives them to patients once he's got them. If he even is a doctor, of course. We are just taking his word for it. Jacob rightly states, thankfully, we have better people doing the mitigations now, rather than the incompetent shitweasels like David here. When Nick asked this tosspot doctor what mortality rate Yellowhammer was predicting that made him think it was a good idea to come on the radio and spout this shit, of course he does not know that, because it was not part of Yellow Snow. It's just his biased opinion, and the only thing he could come up with to promote his agenda. I wonder who put him up to this little stunt, or did he think of this low-life scare story himself? When asked why people would die, he went back to the old scare stories relating to Yellow Snow about drugs not getting through, which has been thoroughly debunked not only because this document is outdated and created by Remoaners, but because it's already been reported that medicines won't be delayed at any border and airlifts will be used if necessary, which from what I have heard already take place now and have done for years if drugs are needed to save someone's life. So it won't be anything new. And let's not forget, we generally buy generic drugs from the EU when they buy specialist drugs from us that are only made here. So trust me, they will make sure our medicine imports get through because they need our exports. Same is true for many other things. They need us more than we need them. Nick himself points out to the Remoaning idiot about the airlifts before Rees-Mogg once again shits on this tosspot doctor for his irresponsibility and shameful actions spreading Project Fear nonsense he has no evidence to back up, which is common practice for anyone who, like David, loves to Remoan! Hopefully this guy is referred to the GMC and made to prove his bullshit claims about increased mortality rate. Good luck on proving the future, though, arsehole.
Go through to Jacob Rees-Mogg. Go ahead, Chris. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, Chris.
Do you think a business would have handled preparations for no-deal Brexit in the way that your government is doing?
Well, I wasn't part of the government until fairly recently, and I have been attending some meetings since then, and I am very impressed by the business-like approach that is being taken, the decisiveness, and the implementation of decisions that are being made.
What about prior to your elevation, Mr. Rees-Mogg?
Well, I wasn't in the government then.
But you look back, obviously, you've seen notes or you pick up on how it was. How would you characterise the readiness or lack thereof?
Well, I think we know full well that there were some people in the last government who deliberately obstructed plans for getting ready to leave the European Union for their political purposes, in spite of standing on a manifesto that said no deal was better than a bad deal.
Philip Hammond.
You might think so. I couldn't possibly comment.
Back to Chris. Have a comment from you.
Well, I mean, Jacob, I think you're entirely disingenuous. You talk about Project Fear. Article from The Guardian yesterday, 42% of anyone that applied for
I think you probably mean The Observer, just as a point of correct. If you say yesterday.
Okay, sorry, correction.
That's all right. No, that's me being very pedantic and journalistic. Go ahead.
In July, 42%, 4 out of 10 people who applied for settled status and should have been given it were not given it, Jacob. My wife has to apply for this week. How on earth do you talk about Project Fear when that percentage of rejection is happening when it comes to EU nationals? I do not believe it, and I frankly find it patronising.
Well, a million people have got...
You don't have to worry about your future.
A million people...
You don't have to worry about moving abroad.
A million people have got... A million people have got settled status. Thousands of people are getting it every day. The application is very straightforward and is there to be as easy for people to use as possible, but people still have to fill in the application form correctly. But a million people have already got it. I think that is a considerable success, and I'm afraid I don't view the Observer as Holy Writ.
Quick last word from you, Chris.
Sorry, 4 out of 10 people have been rejected, Jacob. How on earth can you say that this is okay? And if it's so successful, why are there stories every single day, like a chef? Last week, a famous chef who's running his own business. An Italian woman yesterday, 54. She's been here 50 years and she was rejected for permanent residency. People do not have confidence in your government.
Well, you don't have confidence in the government, and you're an Observer reader. I wouldn't expect you to. That's perfectly reasonable that there are different political views.
No Observer reader has confidence in this government?
Well, unless you read the Observer, and I don't know your personal political views. You and I are more Sunday Express readers,
We probably
I think.
are. Even contributors in occasion.
Even contributors. So a million people have got settled status. This is being rolled out. A third of the people who are eligible have already got it, and there's plenty of time in which to get it. So I think it is working well. You always find the odd case where somebody says, oh, I didn't get it, but those will all be put right because there's plenty of time in which to put it right.
So the next caller asked about business preparations for the upcoming no-deal Brexit, which Jacob states these preparations have picked up massively since Boris took over, because as we all know, the previous administration under Maybot was telling businesses not to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. Jacob does allude to that fact, but refuses to name names, even though the BBC Panorama programme exposed Philip Hammond for deliberately telling businesses not to prepare and admitting it the next day on BBC News when Boris became Prime Minister. Well done, Jacob, for maintaining decency by not calling him out, even if he deserves it. There is no need to beat the dead horse that is Philip Hammond. Just get him deselected and be done with his treachery. The caller is not very happy though. Jacob's calm approach to these Remoaners really sends them into shit fits of rage, calling Mr. Rees-Mogg disingenuous for some reason, before going off on a tangent about Project Fear and quoting Guardian articles like they're based in fact. He likely reads the latest Owen Smollett opinion pieces and thinks Owen is a real journalist. Both Jacob and Nick laugh at this Remoaning moron the moment he mentions the EU newspaper called The Guardian. It goes to show the echo chamber this idiot lives in to think quoting The Guardian would back up his argument about 4 out of 10 people not being granted rights to remain, like that is the government's fault. If 4 out of 10 people are not competent enough to fill out a form, that is not the government's fault. And let's be honest, some of that 40% are not going to be eligible because they have spent too long out of the country in the last few years, or some other factor that would make them ineligible. The Z-list celebrity chef that he claims has been rejected actually got limited right to remain, that he made a big fuss about on Twitter, but only showed half of the letter that said he did not get indefinite leave to remain. He conveniently cut out the bit that gave reasons for his rejection. My guess would be he has been out of the country for too long recently, so he got limited right to remain only. But focusing back on this caller, he's moaning about people being rejected because he married an EU national, but she has not even applied yet. So what the fuck is he moaning about? Jacob and Nick finish up mocking The Guardian's readers because our Remoaning caller claims he does not have confidence in Boris Johnson's government, like that wasn't blatantly obvious to everyone. As Jacob said, 1 million people have been granted settled status already, and they have until December 2020 at least to get it done. So this caller is talking complete bullshit and buying into Project Fear too much. Well, I'm going to end the video there, guys. I want to thank the channel's PayPal, Patreon and Subscribe Star members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Let me know what you guys think about this Remoaning Doctor's Brexit mortality rate bullshit down in the comments section below. Leave a like, subscribe and share this video as it helps the channel a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.